Hello, I'm Bob Maxson, President of California State University Long Beach, and this is Beachview. My guest today is Wade Hawley, Director of the Career Development Center at Cal State Long Beach. Wade has assisted thousands of students, graduates, and alumni in successfully finding gainful employment, and is here today to share some of those thoughts with us on how to best prepare for a job and best find a job. And Wade, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about the Career Placement Center at Cal State Long Beach. Just exactly what do you do, and tell us a little bit about the operation of the center.
Well, we're a centralized service on campus for four main services. We assist undergraduates with career planning and helping them decide on what kind of career options are available to them based upon their major and their interests and their values. We provide them with part-time jobs out in the community as well as on campus. We also provide internships, and so we will take students and place them in profit and nonprofit organizations in positions which are directly related to their academic major. And then finally, we help them transition from the university to careers commensurate with their education.
So we're not just in the business of educating students and preparing students for the workplace. Once we do that, we help them into the workplace.
Right, and it's really a process that we teach them that they can use throughout their life, whether it be, you know, as they graduate or 10 years from now. It's some learning techniques that are used in interviewing and job search that can be used throughout their lifetime.
A little bit later in the program, Wade, I'm going to ask you to share with our viewing audience some tips, if you may. You're an expert, you're a pro on how to help people find jobs, how to keep jobs, and so on. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about our center. How do you connect the student with the employer? What's the mechanism for getting these two entities together?
It really is a public relations campaign. I have a dedicated staff that goes out into the community and talks to employers about the quality of the academic programs and the students at our university. Important for us is that our students get a practical education here. It's not theoretical as some other colleges and universities are, and so therefore our graduates are in demand from local industries and as well as national industries. We have about 150 employers that recruit each and every semester for our graduating seniors. And that range in the disciplines from liberal arts students to business students to engineers to the healthcare fields. So it's a viable out there. You know, we all hear that it's tight out there and the economy is tight, but in fact individuals are finding employment, and that's the important thing because students come here with an ultimate, I guess, goal of employment. And as we both know, the average college student is going to earn $600,000 to $700,000 more in their lifetime than an individual without a college education.
So you're telling me that through our Career Development Center, we will have as many as 150 different companies recruiting our students and looking at our students as they graduate and before graduation.
Right, each and every semester.
Yeah.
We have one of the largest internship or cooperative education program, it's called, in the state of California, in which we average about 1,100 to 1,200 students that apply, and we will place half that number out in the community each and every semester. And that's in addition to the academic programs here, and as you well know, many of the academic programs have an experiential component. Mm-hmm. And so from our university at any one time, there's over 2,500 students a year that are going out and working related to their major and gaining experience. And most of that, from my office, is paid positions. We only allow nonprofit organizations to list volunteer openings as part of a community service effort from the university.
And that makes sense. And so our viewers will know that this is not a service, of course, open to the general public. It's a service provided to our graduates and to the alums of Cal State Long Beach. But I think that, again, you have a wealth of information and a wealth of knowledge that will help a lot of our viewers and people who are either in the job market now or they're anticipating getting in the job market. And so let's talk about some of those things. When people are getting ready to go out into the job market, what's their first step? Is it a resume? Is it how do they go about looking for a job?
I think it goes beyond just a resume. I think first there's a planning component, and that is knowing what you have to offer an employer and what separates you from other individuals that are going to be out there looking for employment. So there's a preparation process that includes identifying your skills and how those skills might relate to the labor market or how they might relate to an individual employer. So there's a research component, and that research can be done here in our university or in the public libraries. There's a wealth of materials available for the public in the community. Most community colleges provide services to the community as well, and would have many of the same materials. So there's a research component before you just simply write down your resume or what you have and send it to someone. There's a research of whether or not that organization has what you want to offer or what you would like to do, as well as whether they have the kind of career path that's available for you.
What you're saying, that when there's a job opening and you know there's going to be a lot of applicants, you've got to figure out a way to distinguish yourself
Right.
Among those applicants so that you catch the eye of the employer, so to speak.
That's right. The average employer is going to spend 30 seconds to a minute looking at a resume. So there's going to have to be something there that is going to sell you to that individual. And that may be your past experience, but it may not be. It may be your volunteer activities.
Because you may not have a lot of past experience.
That's
so you've
right.
got to look for other ways to catch the eye of the employer, so to speak.
That's right. Many of the employers, when they're reviewing resumes, it makes no difference whether your experience is paid or volunteer. It's the quality of the experience that they're looking at, not necessarily how much you made. And so that part is important. Getting involved. What in your background would demonstrate interest for a new individual? For an experienced individual, it's looking at the combination of all of your work history and being able to condense that into a nice readable format.
Let's talk about the resume a minute. I think that's something we all understand. If we want a job, we've got to put together something on paper to give an employer. Any tips, any ideas that you would give to our viewing audience?
It depends upon two things. Number one, if you don't have a lot of work experience, more than likely your resume is going to be one page. Different from an educational vita, which may be several pages of documents and publications. But for the most, it's a one-page resume. Obviously, it should be proofread. There should not be typos. Remember, you're not going to be there when the employer reads it. And so if there are typos or grammatical errors,
That's a killer, isn't it?
it's just,
It's a
you know,
killer.
it tells something about you.
I know, and as you might imagine, I get across my desk letters every week where people are inquiring about employment and so on. I mean, I literally get hundreds during the year, but just every week. And though I don't have a lot of jobs, I don't do the hiring for the university, it does jump out at you when there's just a glaring error there.
And that's right.
I'd like to reinforce that having maybe someone else to proof it for you, to read it for you.
That's extremely important, because remember, you're not there to tell them about your qualities. So the only impression that they receive is that this person has difficulty writing or didn't take enough time or effort to have their resume proofed. Now, someone with a lot of experience may be able to condense their resume into 2 pages and suffice. But the important part of any resume is talking about the skills and abilities that you have, as well as, if you do have experience, the accomplishments within whatever setting you've had. So there has to be something there that you're going to market. Could be your education, could be your past experience, it could be community activities. And so, most people want to hire a self-starter. somebody that is motivated, and so a cover letter is usually required with a letter, and those are the kinds of things that might go in that cover letter. Now, if you're applying for a wide variety of positions, maybe your resume will be different for the different types of occupations you may be applying for, and there may not be an objective on your resume. It could be in the cover letter. But either way, you're going to have to communicate to that employer that you have the necessary skills and abilities to do their job, and you're going to be able to be trainable, if you will. And that's really what happens in college environments is it's an entry into someone's training program.
So for the beginner, the people that are starting their search or that don't have much experience, what you try to make up for is the quality of the experience. If you've not had a lot of jobs or a lot of sets of experiences, then try to some way highlight the quality of the experiences that you've had.
That's correct. And you certainly want to use action type of words, developed, organized, planned. And so you want to obviously put your best foot forward. And in the interview situation is when you can make or break, but it's getting into that situation first. And if you look at what happens with resumes coming across your desk, for every 100 resumes that are sent to an employer, and he selects or she selects 10 people to interview, 90 were screened out. And so it becomes a screening process that does take time and effort to be successful at.
So the objective then of the resume really is to get you the interview.
That's correct.
The resume is probably not going to get you the job. What
That's
you
right.
hope the resume will do will open the door so you can get in and talk to the employer.
That's correct. And once you're in there, then you're going to have a set of information that you're going to provide to that employer almost regardless of whether they ask for it or not. I mean, there's going to be some information about yourself and your skills and your background and why you're interested in that position or that company, how successful you've been in your past, and maybe references will play a part of that, maybe it will not.
What about references? How do you pick references?
I think very carefully.
Important?
It's very important. Nowadays, more and more companies are screening and calling references. All of us have friends, and so the employer understands that. So your references really need to be carefully selected. They need to be from past employers. They need to be from professors on campus that can attest to your learning. And really, as we go into an entry-level training program somewhere, it's learning that's important. I think that that's what a college graduate has, is the ability to learn, to take a set of information or data and apply it to a wide variety of settings.
Well, now we submitted our resume, we've done a pretty good job, we're in the door. Now we want to talk about what happens to us once we get there for the interview. But before we do that, we need to take a break, and we'll be right back with Wade Hawley talking about career planning, talking about placement, talking about job searches, job interviews on Beachview.
Mm-hmm. 2 o'clock. Okay.
Your employees who serve in the National Guard and Reserve may seem different. They may work a little harder, be more confident, more willing to make the extra effort to get the job done right. So when your employees need time off to serve, remember, it's not just good for our country, it's good for your business.
Glad you could all make it.
Why don't you come up here, Pumpkin?
What are you doing, Larry?
Well, Vince, I've asked my pumpkin to sit on my lap to prove a point.
And what is that, your Larryness?
Even if we fasten our safety belts, even if you hold on tight, even if you were watching the road,
Yeah?
in a crash, your pumpkin will be nothing but a squash.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Use child safety seats.
We love that little pumpkin to pieces.
Hi, and welcome back to Beachview. I'm Bob Maxson, president of Cal State Long Beach, And today I'm talking with Wade Hawley of our Career Planning and Placement Center on campus. And Wade, welcome back.
Thank you.
And let's talk some more about finding a job. Now, we've talked about the resume, and we've talked about some other things that one might do, but if I'm looking for a job or looking to change jobs, how do I go about this search?
Well, I think the important thing is that you use as wide of area network as possible. You can't simply look in the classified section anymore for a job. You really have to use a variety of methods. You have to communicate your availability to the widest population possible, which could be friends, it could be past employers, it could be clients that you've worked with or your company is worked with in the past. You know, a big thing now is job search on the internet, and many companies are listing their openings there as well. The Career Development Center receives about 13,000 to 14,000 job openings each year for full-time jobs and about 7,000 part-time jobs. So there are still openings occurring that could be in professional associations. You know, most professional organizations publish a classified ad section for openings. So again, it's a variety of sources. Using the college placement centers is one way. The public libraries, many of them list job openings now. And
I think that would be very useful to our viewers to know that they can go to the public library and possibly get some help there.
Many public libraries are putting on programs on job search simply because of what's taking place locally in the economy in Long Beach. And in fact, tonight we're doing one at El Dorado Library. And we're doing it on resume writing. So there are a number of resources out there. There are private practitioners that provide career counseling individuals for a fee. So that's available to the community as well.
And obviously, if one's mobile, that certainly enhances their job search.
Yes, very much so.
Possibilities.
If one looks at what communities are growing, you know, Seal Beach is not the fastest growing community, but if you look out at the kind of the smog belt along the Riverside, San Bernardino areas, those are very fast growing communities, and industry is moving into that area. So one increases their chances for employment if they're willing to be mobile. Now sometimes that's very difficult if you've worked and you're now as part of a downsizing and you have a house and so forth. But again, you know, looking for a job is sometimes a full-time job in itself. And it's not something that you can spend 5 minutes a day at. It has to be an organized approach. You have to follow up with individuals that you've contacted and basically communicate your availability. It's extremely important.
Okay, we've conducted our job search, and we sort of identified places that we want to work. We put together that good resume that we talked about earlier. No mistakes, no typos, no grammatical errors in it. We have our friends proof it for us, and we put relevant experience in it. Though we may not have much experience, we put quality experiences and list those in the resume. Now, I've been invited for an interview, and I'm very excited because I realize maybe I'm one of 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people that's been invited to come interview with the company. Give me some tips on how I might get that job. How might I land that big job based on my interview?
The first thing is to show up early. You want to be prompt. You want to dress professionally. And although individuals in the work setting may not be wearing suits or appropriate professional dress, you're not in the company as yet. And so you have to keep that in mind. Dress conservatively. And then when you get into the interview, you want to stress your skills and abilities. You want to stress the learning that you're capable of, the kinds of things that that employer does. If it's sales and marketing, for example, if you're going for sales, you want to talk about self-motivation, that you have the abilities and the skills, that employer isn't going to have to motivate you. You're going to do it internally. The other thing is kind of in the interview with telling the employer that you're interested in the job. Many times when I'm interviewing for positions in my office, I get the impression that this person is really interested in my job. It's simply that I had a job opening and they don't know about my services or what I have to offer. So if you can't talk to the employer about their products or their services or the size of the company, then it shows that you haven't done enough research about that organization. There's kind of a corporate culture, if you will, and you can find that information readily available in magazines and through research on the size of the company and their products and services.
I think that's interesting what you said, and I'm certainly not an expert in this area, but through the years I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of people for various positions, and I've always been impressed by people that I thought really wanted the job. Mm-hmm. I've never been impressed by people who were being coy or that I felt like was being a little bit hard to get or had come there to bargain with me too much, although mm-hmm. certainly negotiations, that's a legitimate part of any...
Certainly, at a later process.
At a later process. But I've always been impressed by people who I thought genuinely wanted to work with the organization and seemed to be excited about the possibility of working with the organization. So I appreciate your saying that, because that's something that I had sensed.
Yes, it's extremely important. Again, you have to understand that there are a number of individuals that are applying for the same position. And what's going to separate you? Maybe you don't have the best work experience, but if you're positive and you're outgoing and
there's no substitute for enthusiasm.
There really isn't.
No substitute for enthusiasm.
And the important thing for employer to understand, and realize is I'm going to spend 8 hours a day with you.
Yeah.
And if you're enthusiastic and motivated, you're going to make my job easier as well.
We hear a lot about job satisfaction, and that probably works both ways. I'm sure the employer is looking at this candidate and wondering how this person would be to work with. We have a professor on our campus here who's done a lot of research mm-hmm. on what he calls fun at work, and talking about how much more productive people are that really enjoy their work and frankly have fun doing it. And my guess is this might be important to communicate during the interview that you are a pleasant person to work with. Yes. and that you enjoy your work.
Usually it's when people have difficulties in the workplace, it's usually not through their work effort, it's through the interpersonal kinds of things. They can't get along, there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of forthrightness between you and the organization. And so, being able to communicate those kinds of things to your employer is important.
Wade, I was listening to public radio recently. I was driving into work, in fact, and had public radio on, and I heard a commentator talking about, and I'm not sure who it was, but talking about unemployment in America and some of the problems that different areas experienced. And this person said that one of the problems they had with chronically unemployed people was not so much their work skills, but their work habits. Mm-hmm. And I guess some way you have to communicate to the employer that you have good work habits, not just work skills, but good work habits.
And that's why many employers are now using the reference checks, so that it's less of a chance they're willing to take because of...
What do you mean reference checks?
Individuals that you provide me with 4 references of where you've worked or professors, and I'm going to call those individuals.
What you're saying is that this day and time people really are calling all those people you put down.
That's correct.
And probably trying to read between the lines what that person
That's
is saying
correct.
back to them.
And important for you as the candidate is to have discussed your qualifications with that reference. It doesn't really help as much for that reference to say that you're a nice person, as much as if they can talk about how well you did your job, how motivated you were, how well you got along with your coworkers. Those kinds of skills and abilities, the interpersonal kinds of things, are extremely important. Obviously, you need to be productive as well. Nobody wants to hire somebody and have to do their job for them. But it's the interpersonal skills as well. And so as they call those references, that's really what they're trying to key into. So it's important to, if I were the candidate, to have discussed what that reference can say or is going to say about me, whether it be a faculty member, or a past employer. It's extremely important.
Probably the obvious references are certainly people who know you well, but would be people that have been in your work background somewhere, which also is a pretty good message about trying to keep good relationships even when you're leaving other companies or other organizations, making sure that those transitions are smooth and that those relationships are intact when you leave.
The U.S. Department of Labor would indicate that individuals change their careers 5 or 6 times, in their lifespan now. And so because of all that mobility and flexibility, it's extremely important to leave on a good note. I noticed in the newspaper this week of people that were talking about the Long Beach Naval Shipyard, and the people that were being interviewed that may face layoff were talking about working as hard as they can until that happens. That's the attitude that will get those individuals employed elsewhere.
Wade, how important stress?
Very important.
If I'm coming to interview with you and you have a position, how important is the way I dress?
In most cases, extremely important, because you have to understand that you represent the company. And if you are poorly dressed and it doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be clean and neat.
Doesn't have to be expensive.
It doesn't have to be expensive. Certainly, individuals can get by with inexpensive but professional attire. That's extremely important because you're an extension of the company. I'm an extension of Cal State University Long Beach. And so if I, go out into the community, I have to understand that I'm representing not only you as the president, but the university as a whole.
So as you look at me and you're an employer, you'll look at me as how will this person represent me, how will this
That's
person
correct.
represent my company.
Yeah, because
Well, let me say this, and I hate to end this good discussion, but you represent your university quite well, and we really appreciate you being on this show. And I want to thank you for being a part of Beachview. I'd like to thank Matt Kaplan, head of CSULB Television, and my assistant, Tony Barone. And again, thanks for watching us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Beachview.